I'm saying will also be recorded on video. And just a couple other norms. Remember, it was a little different setting tonight, right? Last year when I did this presentation, we're in the Columbia High School Library. There's a bunch of 8th grade parents in the room. I could see you all. Obviously, I can't see anyone right now, so it's a little different for me to be able to stop and answer questions. I do have the chat box and the Q&A box up on the left side of my screen, so anytime I could take a break, I'll pop over to there and answer questions. I do believe we have some and supervisors with us tonight, so if they also have access to, so they may be able to reply. But one thing I'll say, if for anyone that's given a presentation while also managing a chat box, sometimes I might not see your chat question at the same moment while I'm going through the slides. So just please kind of bear with me. I am saving the chat log, so if I don't answer your question in the moment tonight, I'll be able to follow up with you. It would help for me if you put your email address at the end of the chat, just because then I can make sure to get back to you if I'm not able to answer this evening. And every now and then I might take a beat just to kind of let you absorb the slide as I check in on the chat box and the Q&A. And at the end here is my email address. And so I appreciate you coming. We're going to treat this just the same as we did last year's presentation. The only difference is I'm at home, you're at home. I'm wearing fuzzy slippers, but everything else will be the same. And so we're going to start first with just the math sequence, just some basics. Every student needs 15 credits in math and science in high school. So typically that's 3 classes in each subject area. All students can choose any level for any course that they're eligible for. So that's part of our access and equity policy. And basically what that's saying is that if you pass the previous course, you're able to select the next course at any level that it's offered. And this is specific to Columbia High School. And one of our newer changes in recent years is all of our core math and science courses follow the same grading policy and give quarterly assessments. And I'll speak to that on this next slide. So quarterlies are tests at the end of each quarter. So instead of a midterm and final, which we previously had, we just kind of break up the midterm into 2 tests in the first half of the year, and the final exam, you want to think of it as 2 assessments in the second half of the year. They're created by teachers and reviewed by myself, so they're planning these out, every marking period and getting ready and kind of setting these goalposts. And to give you an idea of the rough timelines, the first one will be at the end of November, then we have a late January one, an April test, and a June test. And there's a couple of reasons why we decided to make this change. One, I thought it was a great advantage for students, to take a test in January that covers, from September to January is a lot. And we felt like breaking it up into smaller, more manageable pieces would be good for them. And also it allows us as teachers and educators to ensure consistent pacing and scope. So teachers are constantly in conversation because they know there's a very near kind of checkpoint. They want to be consistent with each other so that they're all preparing their students as well as possible. And then as far as the grading breakdowns, we still have a midterm and final grade column in our grade books report cards. So we've just basically split up those two pieces in the fall they make up 40 and 60% respectively of the midterm grade, and then the 2 tests in April and June make up 40 and 60% of the June grade. So specifically the math sequence you'll see here in front of you, all students go through the sequence, and now obviously it'll depend on how much you've finished already in middle school, but our sequence is Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, and then Pre-Calculus. And then we have other classes that are, elective and APs that I'll speak to in a minute, but I wanted to show the grading policy here. So every academic course in Algebra 1 through Pre-Calculus has, they're set up this way, where the major assessments are 70 to 80%, non-selected homework, and then, a group for other. And then all honors courses are this way too. It helps, again, to ensure consistency across our classes and just, transparency on how we approach our courses. So what to expect in freshman math? Again, it'll be a little different depending on which course your child is taking as a 9th grader, but generally all courses will have frequent homework and assessment. We do have NJSLA, which formerly was called the PARCC test. We'll have that preparation within the course. We don't really shut down our classes and just get ready for the test, but we weave in the question format, so students aren't just seeing those kind of formats for the first time in April when they take the test. And there's also an expectation of prior class mastery. So, for example, Algebra 2 courses, they start with the expectation that, hey, you're in Algebra 2 now, so there's an expectation that you've mastered Algebra 1. And we're going to maybe do a week or 2 on just kind of review, maybe refresher, but then we're going to get right into it because we want to prepare you for the next course. And so that's a big piece of how we are able to be successful in our courses, is making sure our students are ready to go for the next one. And then, there's there's a lot of different options, and it kind of sprays out as you get into 11th, 12th grade. And this is just some typical pathways that students may follow. And you'll see, you know, after pre-calculus, we have options with AP courses, other non-AP courses that are great electives, and some coding courses, a lot of different things that students can take. And at the end of this, I'll share this, the link to the course of studies, which is already on our school website if you want to get specific description for each course. And a popular question I get from a lot of parents is, how do I get my child to calculus? And so really, it all really is dictated by when you complete Algebra 1. And so most of our middle school students complete Algebra 1 before they graduate middle school. So at that point, you know, even if you completed it, you're just taking one math class in high school and you'll get to calculus. Some of our students who maybe finished Algebra 1 in 7th grade, you're just going to get there a year earlier. And then there are some students who like to take Algebra 1 as freshmen, which is fine. And one thing I want to note, if you're in that case, there are still opportunities and ways to get to calculus, whether we have summer class offerings, which I'll speak to a little bit more later. We allow students to take geometry and Algebra 2 concurrently at the same time. So that's a way to get there. And so there are ways that we've had students start their freshman year in Algebra 1 and get to calculus. So I just kind of say that to maybe pull some pressure off of you if you feel like, hey, you know, my student's not in geometry right now, they're not going to get to calculus. No, that's not true. If you're a middle school student entering the high school, either in Algebra 1, geometry, or Algebra 2, we have many pathways to get you to calculus, if that's your goal, by the time you graduate. And also, too, just want to reiterate, you know, there are other options besides calculus if you have other passions. So that's not the be all end all. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. I'm going to pause on this slide, give people a chance to take a look and just take a second and check in with the questions. I see one question. I'm just going to, instead of typing back, I'm just going to answer these. AP Computer Science A, I see that question. We don't have it on the books for next school year, but we are in conversations on having that in. So I would say it's likely that it'll be a high school offering within your student's timeline at the high school. If a student takes AP Statistics and Pre-Calculus as a sophomore and then BC Calc as a senior, and BC Calc as a senior, what would you recommend senior year? Oh, okay. So if some students get to our AP Calculus course before their senior year, we do have a course here in the bottom right called Calculus 3 and Linear Algebra. They're 2 semester courses that students take together. So that's a post-AP Calculus class. It's similar to a 3rd year of calculus, if you're interested in that. I see another question. This is a great question. Is it required Algebra 2 as honors for 9th graders? No. And 9th graders can take Algebra 2 at the academic or the honors level. I did meet with the 8th grade teachers earlier this week to kind of go through these slides with them, and they asked about options for students who maybe wanted to refresh. Maybe you took geometry in middle school, but it didn't go well for you, or maybe you feel like, hey, I could use some more time in either geometry or Algebra 1. You're welcome to select that at the high school. The beauty of the middle school is that those courses do not follow you in high school. So if, you know, let's say geometry this year is a little bit challenging for you and you maybe don't want to go right into Algebra 2, you can select geometry, honors, or academic as a freshman again next year, and no college is any of the wiser. So that's just one thing to think about. And I'm going to go to the Q&A. What would taking Algebra 2 over the summer than pre-calculus in 9th grade help a student have more room for STEM classes in 10th and 11th grade? So that first Q&A question, I'll just say that Miss H, it could do that. Yeah, it would do that. Yes, obviously you'd move through the sequence faster, but many times if you're entering high school as a 9th grader in Algebra 2, you're very well positioned to get to almost any math course that you want to take. I would say all of them. So I don't know if there's really much of a need to push faster than that pace. I'm going to hop back off of the Q&A for a second. Actually, no, I'll finish the Q&A. I see, real quick, math prerequisite for AP Physics. You have to be in calculus or have completed calculus for AP Physics. Electives, so all of these electives can count as your 3rd year math course. We have sometimes students who take maybe geometry as a freshman, Algebra 2 as a sophomore, and then they decide they don't necessarily are not interested in pre-calculus, and they take maybe discrete math or statistics, and that could be your 3rd math course. All these courses on here count as a math course for either 2.5 or 5 credits. The half-year courses are 2.5 credits, and the full-year courses are 5. Some of these questions are going to take me longer to answer, so I am saving the chat, so I will get back to you it would again help me if you sign your questions with your email address so I can kind of directly message them back. So I'm going to get back to the science. And I'll pop back and add the chat though. So don't feel like if I didn't get your question right now, I won't get to it at some point. So the science sequence. The science sequence is a little bit more defined at the high school because all students are entering into biology as freshmen. And so every freshman takes biology, every sophomore takes physics, and then the juniors take chemistry. And they follow this grading breakdown, similar to math, but we also have a lab category. So we also fit that in for our academic and honors courses. And so these are all the teachers in academic biology will set up their grade books in this fashion, and all the teachers in honors physics, for example, will set up their grade books in this fashion. Again, a goal of consistency and making sure that students have as consistent an experience that we can provide at the high school. And then we do have other classes like electives and AP courses that would come after the sequence. The earliest AP course in science would be AP chemistry, which is your junior year. And so specifically in freshman biology, some just of our core topics here and what to expect. These are the topics in freshman biology. They kind of build off of that 7th grade science experience, where that's really where a lot of students in MMS and SOMS get their first taste of life science. And we kind of build off of that experience. And this is probably a good time to also just interject. We are constantly looking for opportunities and time to have dialogue between the middle school and the high school. So, we do, last year before the pandemic, a few of our 8th grade biology teachers went down to visited classes, chatted with the teachers, try to, make that connection to understand exactly where your students are coming from, and also let them know, what are the expectations and what is the high school experience like, so the 8th grade teachers can best prepare them. So I just thought that'd be a good thing to share here, because it is important. We're trying to build this bridge right from the middle school to the high school. And some of the emphasis that you'll see in biology are listed here. And one thing I just want to point out, it's biology. None of these topics or points of emphasis are math dense. So a lot of times we'll find that students make their choice between academic and honors biology based on their math course, but really you should just be looking at this list here. How are my study skills and organization and time management? If you feel like that's something that you manage well in the middle school level, then you're probably well positioned to be successful in biology, no matter what math class you're in. So that's an important thing I want you to kind of consider. And then we have the sequence here. I'm going to leave this sequence up and hop back to the chat. So let me see. I see a question from Ms. Freeman. Why geometry taught before algebra 2? Students are allowed to take them together, but we typically recommend you can't take algebra 2 first. Algebra 2 honors is the only algebra 2 available for 9th graders. There is algebra 2. Algebra 2 academic is available for 9th graders. If you're not seeing that as an option, please reach out to your student's counselor and they'll help you make that request. Discrete math, that's a good question. So discrete math is a new course that we started last year. It really just covers topics that don't typically fit into a math sequence. And so you'll see things like probability, which really kind of just touch on, or the logic examples of logic, fair sharing. Maybe like one unit might be on like how to, the electoral college, and is that a mathematically good way to represent the population? So it's an interesting course. We designed it for our students that have enjoyed the math sequence, or maybe don't necessarily see themselves pushing into an AP calculus course, or maybe they took AP calculus and senior year they want something different. That's what discrete math is about. And again, all courses that we have a description in the course guide that you guys can grab off our site. And then I see a question about science labs. Science labs currently only exist for the AP courses. So the AP courses have a lab period. I see a question in the Q&A. What year do AP classes start? That really depends on your sequence. Usually the earliest year that students may take an AP course will be sophomore or junior year. Oh, I see that. Thanks, Mr. Sanchez, for hopping in and answering some of these questions with. I will speak to I see a lot of questions coming in the choice between academic and honors. I'll speak to that towards the end. If you finish calculus in 11th grade, we have a post-AP course called Calculus 3 and Linear Algebra, but there are other options as well. AC in this chart stands for academic. AC is for academic, HN is for honors. Okay. I'm going to pop back over to the slides. I appreciate everyone bearing with me, hopping back and forth. Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't at least touch on our our other parts of the STEM department, right? And they're very important as well. A lot of times in STEM, we spend a lot of focus on the math and science courses only, but there are courses, they all kind of fall in the umbrella of the 21st century life and career courses. And they're really split up into three smaller groups: our business courses, our engineering courses, and our television production courses. And so just the basics first, all students need 5 credits in a 21st century life and career course. So usually that's either one full year course, 5 credits is one full year, or if you want to take 2 half-year courses, that'll get you towards your 5 credits. In addition to that, all students must take a 2.5 credit financial literacy course. Most often, that's our personal finance course as a part of the business department. Sometimes students take economics, which would also satisfy that requirement. And sometimes students go through our online option called Money Skills. One thing I want to make clear is these are separate and distinct. So you need 5 credits in 21st century life and career courses and an additional 2.5 credits in financial literacy. They don't overlap. So just on these next few slides, just preview for you the courses. And again, all the descriptions for the courses are in our course of studies. Personal finance is the one I said that, and the rest of these are really more specific on your interests and things that you might find interesting. All of them are half-year courses, and to the right, you'll see the grades, what grades we begin to offer them, and if there are any prerequisites. Marketing and capital markets. Capital markets and investments is a new course this year, and marketing is a new course next year, which we're pretty excited about. So I hope you take a minute and read about them in our course of studies. And then our engineering department has 3 courses. They're all full-year courses. So we have an architecture course, a computer-aided drawing course, and then a fundamentals of engineering course, which is, I believe, now in its 4th year. And that builds off of the CAD course. That's an exciting course. A lot of students who have interest in engineering fields pursue this after they take CAD. And again, these are all full-year courses. So if you took one of these, you would meet your full five credits at the completion of this course. And then lastly, which are very popular at CHS, we start with just 2 semester courses, so a TV production and a TV production 2. And then after that, if students really want to push further, we have our full-year courses, CHS News, AM, CHS Media 1 and 2. Those are at the honors level courses, and they're full-year courses. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone gets a full scope of the STEM offerings here. And I'm going to take a second to really talk about, and these are really, I believe, the most important slides, are what to expect just generally at Columbia High School. And I think it's important to set the expectations and then also have these dialogues with your students because it'll help you have a positive experience and really understand, the bits and pieces. And like I said in the beginning, the high school has a lot of moving parts. And so the best thing you could do is be informed. And this is the goal of tonight's presentation. So I already highlighted the quarterly exams, summer assignments, and courses. So I'll speak to this briefly. So many of our courses in math and science have summer assignments. Oftentimes there are recommended summer assignments, not required. And basically the reason why we recommend them is because we want students to be able to enter September fresh and ready to go. And so that's a really helpful tool for the students. As far as the summer courses, we do offer Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 every summer, the full course. This is not like a failure makeup, but a full course in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So students who want to take it for the first time. We offer that's taught by our teachers. Last summer, we did it virtually. We haven't planned out specifically this summer yet, but it's a full course taught by our teachers. We're giving the same material. And when students complete it, it counts for credit and towards their GPA. So it is a great opportunity to move a little faster through the sequence if that's your goal. Especially let's say you're an 8th grader right now who hasn't taken Algebra 1 yet, and you want to take Algebra 1 going into freshman year. You could take it this summer. Freshman year, we change your schedule so that you're in geometry. So it's a good experience. It's not, it's by no means super easy, right? Math courses, taking a full math course over the summer is gonna take some time and effort. But students have had a lot of positive experiences with it. And I'm sure I'm going to get some questions. We typically send out the information for this in April. So we'll send out the specifics on the sign-up process and what you need to know and our timelines and schedules. If people are already starting to think about, well, how can I fit this in the summer? We usually start a few days after the last day of the last high school day, and we'll go for about 5 or 6 weeks. So we end either end of July or like the first week in August. Things I want to talk about, and this is really important, grading and transcripts. So as I said earlier, the middle school courses, they don't go on a transcript. And so that's a nice experience. And that's part of the middle school experience for students to kind of help them develop in all ways. And then in high school, the one big change is that your grades go on your transcript. And it starts in ninth grade. I remember as a high school student, there was a common refrain of thinking about, okay, junior year is your big year. But really a lot of our research shows, and this link here I'll share out with everyone, is that ninth grade success is a big predictor for your success, not only throughout the rest of high school, but even in college. So it's important that students are approaching freshman year with that same approach that we may think about any of the later grades in high school. And just to balance that, not to add, I don't want to overstate the pressure here. What goes on a transcript is your final grade in the course. It's not every single grade that you get in the course. And so, sometimes I've had conversations with freshmen and maybe it's September and they had a low grade on their first quiz and they feel like this has now precluded them from getting into the college that they're planning on. And I always kind of let them know, like, no, we're working towards that June final end of year grade. So while freshman year is important, we want to build towards the end of freshman year and get a great grade on a transcript. Not every single score is going to dictate that, right? And so we want to build that. So just kind of make sure that's part of your conversations with your students as well. Another thing to expect at Columbia High School, on a normal scheduled day, we have a period 9, which is the last period of the day where most of our teachers do not have a class, most of our students do not have a class. And so teachers are hanging out in their classroom, just able to meet with students and who want extra help, or maybe they need to make something up, or maybe they didn't understand something in class. It's a great experience. It's open. And so one thing I will say is just personal experience. The students that I found to be most successful are those that take advantage of this, right? Because it's not a mandatory thing. It's not like you have to come see your teacher, but if you take that opportunity, you really get a lot of benefit from it. And the last two I'll speak to on the next slide, just the commonly planned courses and the increasing pace and rigor at the high school. Let me pause on this, sorry, and just click over to the chat and see if I missed anything. The 21st century life and career, it's up to you. You can take it freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. There's not necessarily a best year to take it. Seeing if I missed any questions. Okay, I think most of the questions have been answered. Okay. Okay, so I want to speak more on these last 2 bullet points. Commonly planned courses and increased pace and rigor. So commonly planned courses at Columbia High School, the teachers meet regularly to discuss pacing and scope. So even especially this year, there's a weekly meeting with teachers where they're planning out their lessons together, they're sharing resources, and they're, again, a big thing that is that check mark is those quarterly exams at the end of each marking period. So they're constantly in conversation about them. And courses, like I said, follow the same grading policy. So that's, I think, just a good thing to know and something you can expect in the beginning of the school year, communication from myself and your teachers on on that grading policy. And some of the things might be different. So, it's important to be informed. Maybe some things that you were used to in the middle school may not exist in the high school, whether it's maybe your middle school teacher had a policy on how they operated their tests or whatever. It's important to get these conversations going early with your high school teachers on how these policies operate. And one thing I want to be clear on is teachers still have the latitude to design their assessments and assignments how they deem best for their classes. So while they're commonly planned, not every single assignment is going to look exactly the same as the one across the hall, but they are still aimed to reach the same scope and challenge. And then the other thing I think is important to touch on is pace and rigor. High school courses are by nature a little bit more challenging, a little bit more faster paced than the middle school courses. Some things you'll see is more critical thinking and extension questions. And what I mean by that is, where students are maybe trying a math problem that is a little bit more nuanced than the last example that the teacher did that day. It's kind of push and challenge a little bit more. Or in a biology class, we'll see like, okay, give an example of this concept that we discussed in class. There's less often going to be study guides and review days and things that might have been more common at the middle school level. So, especially at the honors level classes, I'll see things where the teacher's like, okay, remember the quiz is on Friday. It's going to be on this topic, and this topic, but there may not be like a practice quiz or, shutting down class on Thursday to review. So there is more ownership of the learning on our students. And I think that's a great thing. And obviously, it's not day one and immediately. One thing that we work on, especially with our freshman teachers, is building that experience and that skill set up for our students. But I do want to let you know that that's our ultimate goal, is to get your freshmen to a place during their freshman year where they're really taking a lot of ownership over their learning. You know, I'll give a great example. I was in a biology class last week, and the teacher was going over human impact, and she gave an outline of human impact, and then she allowed students on their own to decide how they wanted to research it further and present it, and then plan a presentation to the rest of their classmates. And so it's a great experience, and it's a skill set that we continually work to develop at the high school. Okay, I'm going to pause here. I'll allow you guys you all to read this screen and see if anyone question. Okay. So the best way to prepare for the increased pace and rigor is, one, I would say definitely take the summer assignments to heart. You know, while we recommend them, we don't require them. If you're especially someone that's worried about your child's readiness for the high school, take that recommendation strongly. I see a question that says, does an IEP go on the transcript? By no means. You know, IEPs they're not mentioned on the transcript. They don't affect college transcripts. IEPs are really for us to understand how to best support your child. The only thing that goes on the transcript is the course that you're taking and the grade in the course. Let's see. Yes, I see a question, Ms. Harrington, on independent research options. Look up in our course of studies a science research program, and then send me a note on it. I'm happy to do it more. The time commitment for the summer math courses, a typical schedule is like 8 to 1 every day for about 5 or 6 weeks. I see some other Q&As. Okay, I see some questions about the honors and academics, so it's perfect timing for hop back over here and kind of speak to that. That's a very common question. It's probably the most common question we get is, what is the difference between academic and honors? So I think kind of 3 key differences are how we prepare for assessments, right? At the academic level, there's more an intention preparation, and then at the honors level, it's really more of a guidance. Like, you know, the quiz is coming up. These are the things you should be studying. Review your notes, review your homework, and be ready. Whereas an academic level class, the quiz is coming up, but, you know, here's a study guide, or here is maybe a good practice quiz you want to take. So a little bit more readiness planning for our testing quizzes you'll see at the academic level. Homework time is going to be generally a little more for our honors classes. And then just for the in-class experience, I think this is a good thing. There's more of an emphasis on extensions in our honors classes. So maybe in a biology class, you design your own lab, or maybe in your math class at an honors level, the quiz question might be a little tweak on what you saw, you know, in class, or maybe it's connecting to a previous topic and you're kind of pulling some things together. GPA. In a weighted GPA, that's a GPA that factors in the level of the course. So for example, at Columbia High School, if you got a B in an honors biology class, that's equal on your weighted GPA as a B+ in academic. So first of all, we're talking about like 3 percentage points. It's not very different. And one thing I think it's important to note, most colleges, when they're looking at your student's transcript, they're going to more often look at the unweighted GPA. So they're not necessarily going to factor in this B versus a B+ conversation. So I think the biggest reason why I really want to just hammer all that home is you want to make these decisions based on the content area and your passion for it, and what you hope to you know, experience in the class. So, you know, which on the left side or right side. You don't want to make the decision based on if it says AC or HN next to the course, because then you're kind of going at it for the wrong reason. So I think that's a really good just kind of rule of thumb if you're thinking about, you know, which level of a course to choose. And again, you know, no matter what, you know, there may be times where you struggle. You know, I think many of us can remember at some point in high school or college and maybe hitting a challenge that we weren't used to. And so that's when you look for things like our period 9 help that I mentioned earlier. We also have, in a normally scheduled year, we'll have a science, language arts, and math lab that's in the library where teachers are on duty to kind of help students as they're working through. And a good thing just too on how you can help us. First, just understanding the system. You know, so, you know, it's a great first step that everyone that's here today and listening to this and asking these questions, because as I said, you know, high school is a little different from middle school, so it's important to understand the differences and ask these questions. And another thing I think is important when you're thinking about scheduling decisions is to consider the whole school day. You know, it's important to remember that we're not making all these decisions in a vacuum, right? If you're choosing a math honors course, I always ask students, okay, well, what is the rest of your schedule looking like? You know, and then are you taking honors courses at other levels? Where do you want to maybe go longer term? Are you an athlete? Do you have responsibilities outside of school that may kind of cut into your homework time. Like these are all things that I think are important to consider. You know, one good activity is that before you kind of hit submit on your course request, just pause and maybe jot that down and look at that list and see how you can kind of picture that day and how you feel about the challenges that day may present. Another thing, just kind of on a day-to-day basis, is talking to your students about class, asking them what's happening, you know, asking them what they're learning. I think that's a great conversation always to have with your child. And staying in touch with teachers' updates. You know, teachers at the high school are frequently, you know, updating via email, via Canvas on their grade books. And so it's important to kind of check in. And I would recommend, you know, not to overdo it, you know, but I would make it a common practice. And maybe it's a weekly or bi-weekly kind of popping in over to Power School and seeing how your child is doing. That'll just help you get a gauge of how things are going. And reach out to teachers and myself for and with feedback. You know, it's helpful for us to know what's working, what's not working for your child. And it's also helpful for us to have dialogue with you about, hey, this is something I'm noticing, or this is something you can expect in this course. It's a really great thing. And the earlier you do this, the better. And teachers as well. And I reiterate this to the teachers: the earlier they make this connection with the parents, the better the rest of the year goes. And so I think these are just kind of some steps for success that I wanted to share with everyone. And this is my last slide here, just, you know, for, you know, teachers, counselors, myself. When I send these slides out, this middle link here will have our course offering guide, which just covers all of our courses at Columbia High School with descriptions. It covers a lot of things that I just said. And then the bottom link is our student and family handbook. And then we just kind of close out this. That's my contact information if you ever want to just reach me directly. This is my last slide. And so I'll hang out and read the chat box and see if there's anything that I maybe missed. But I appreciate spending the time with me this evening. I'll continue to record until the last question. But if you have to run, I appreciate you taking the time and give me a couple days. Sometimes these a little bit to convert and upload, but I'll send out the recording and the slides for everyone. So thank you so much, and I appreciate your time this evening. I'm going to hop over to the questions. Okay, there's been a few. Do universities expect honors level classes? I don't necessarily think that's always the case. I think an important thing is to also have a conversation with people about what they want to major in. So, you know, if you're looking to major in something that is math and science related, then yes, it's probably likely that the college that they want to go to is going to expect some of our higher level courses, at least, and somewhere throughout their transcript. There's no requirement. I had a question here. Is there a requirement to take an honors class? There is not a requirement to take an honors class. AP Calculus and Honors Calculus. The difference there is that the AP Calculus course is more rigorous in that it's paced, because the AP test happens in May, so the teachers have to kind of cover all their content and get students for that AP test. And Honors course is a little bit less bound by AP. It's not AP, so there's no, you know, May test for college credit. The teachers are able to kind of go at a pace that they feel is best for the students. Our computer science offerings right now, we have Roadmap to Computing, which is a half-year course, and it builds into computer science principles. Earlier, I mentioned that computer science A is something that we're looking to add to for future years.
Can I just add, Mr. M, as you're going through this,
Yeah.
And by the way, thank you again for doing this STEM night. This is just specifically on STEM. There was a question about STEAM, and you know, we have, of course, a robust arts program as well, and all of that is in the program of studies. But because I think sometimes we worry that math and science are interlocked, and that may affect whether, you know, what honors class we can take later. We just have this specially curated class, assembly here, or workshop, to focus on our math and science, and of course the other fields like technology that you also supervise. As a parent, though, I think I have an 8th grader too, and it was quite a challenge to create her schedule just this week with her. It's, you know, I would recommend as a parent that you kind of go over this a little bit each night. You know, you have till March 20-something, 26th, I believe it is, and you're going to be meeting with, your child will be meeting with a counselor. So I just think it's probably best to take a little bite of each part of the schedule and go over that with your child over a week or two, rather than just sitting down. I think that's a lot of stress and pressure on a student at once. So I think that's my advice as a parent. But I will say, if you look at that program of studies, it is so impressive coming to Columbia High School. This is my first year. How many course offerings we have here, especially as your child goes to a sophomore, junior, senior year. So it's an exciting time, and I hope your child is as excited as we all are to have them come up.
Thanks, Mr. Sanchez. I think I got to the rest of the questions in the chat, and I just put in lastly for anyone with us, that link that I just put in is a Google Doc directly to our program of studies. So that covers every course that we have at Columbia High School, all the requirements, descriptions. So that's a great place to start as you're kind of piecing together your schedule. And please reach out to all of us at Columbia High School, the supervisors, principals, counselors. We're happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop recording here. I'll hang out if a few more questions come into the chat. But thank you again, everyone, for your time, and have a great rest of your evening.
And just one last thing, I think, too, is just that their current counselor is, because their current 8th grade counselor knows the child very well, could also be someone to bounce off ideas. They are familiar with our program of studies as well. I think that's a good person to contact too.